and welcome back to the Whatever Next podcast, where we talk about all things adoption. I'm one of your hosts, Addie, and I was adopted from China when I was 8 months old and grew up in Kansas City, Missouri, where I'm currently based.
Hi, I'm Josephine. I was adopted from China when I was 18 months and grew up in London, but I'm currently based in Edinburgh.
Hi, my name's Hannah. I was adopted from China when I was 20 months old. I grew up in Dorset, but I'm currently based in Edinburgh.
In 2019, we all met in Edinburgh for the first time. Now we've come together to open dialogues about adoption through the lenses of adoptees. In this second episode, we'll be discussing relationships in all forms, such as friendships, romantic, and ones with yourself. So we're going to play some clips again. We've got 3 different people to share with you. The first one is with Hannah, our co-host, and also another Chinese adoptee named Hannah, talking about dating. And we've also got a clip from me and Rowan again, talking about having conversations about me being adopted within our relationship. And we also have a clip from an interview with Josephine and her mom, talking about different aspects of intimacy, emotional intimacy in relationships, having relationships in the future. So how would you guys describe yourself as a young teenager just trying to discover your identity and relationship with yourself? And how do you think your friendships changed from when you were in high school to like now as an adult? So like for me, I was very timid and shy. I had a lot of friends, but I cared a lot about what other people thought of me. So my relationship with my friends definitely varied. I had a lot of different categories of friends that I kept separate for different social scenes and stuff like that.
I think what you say about categories is quite interesting, because I think that compartmentalizing of friendships and friendship groups was definitely something that I did as well, because it felt a lot easier to have these separate entities, kind of like Venn diagrams, than have them overlap. Because I think also part of it was just different. I think you have different kind of personalities with different people, but it was just the crossover of any of those really, I think, frightened me a little bit, because
same here.
Yeah. Even mixing friends and family, I find that quite difficult to this day.
Yes. I definitely had a lot of anxiety of thinking about if one friend from this category met another friend from this category, because I wouldn't know how to act in front of both of them.
Yeah.
That's still me today.
Super healthy.
Love that.
But yeah, there was this one time when I think it was near the end of high school, I had a New Year's Eve party at my house. And this was after I had lived in Vietnam for a little bit. So I had kind of gotten over my compartmentalizing different friend groups. And since I was at home back in Kansas City, I wanted to invite everybody that I ever met to my New Year's Eve party, because I was so excited on bringing people together after my experience in Vietnam. So I invited people from my life, from grade school, from different high school groups, from work friends to neighborhood friends, everybody in the same house on New Year's Eve. And so not everybody knew each other. Everyone kind of was meeting new people at the same time. But for me, I was this is everybody in my life. And I remember some of my friends being this is a really weird party, because there's a lot of different people here. And yeah, some people felt really awkward in interactions, but I thought it was hilarious.
Did it go well? Did they all get on?
Kind of. Some people didn't really get on. Some people, they definitely didn't mingle all together. There are still groups, which I thought was interesting. But for me, I was in a point where I didn't really care anymore. But yeah, it was when I still talk about it with my friends today, they're yeah, that was kind of weird. That was a little bit weird. Interesting New Year's Eve party.
What do you think, Hannah?
Yeah, no, I think at school I had different groups of friends, you were talking about, different categories, and say from one subject and then another. And then it was always weird when you'd meet someone else on the street or something and you'd be oh yeah. And then your friends don't know each other because I haven't introduced them or they just haven't met each other before. And that's the same here at uni as well. But even I find it so different when you have childhood friends versus sort of the friendships at university or at school.
Do you feel like that you are a different, or they know a different Hannah, like these two different friend groups know a different version of you?
I mean, my high school friends or my childhood friends, they have seen me grow up and change, whereas at uni, it's sort of that, I don't know, that Hannah at uni, and then they don't know much before because it's only how much I tell them or how much I show.
I know, I find it a lot easier to kind of talk to people and interact with them like one-on-one or kind of in small groups. I really dislike group scenarios. They make my head hurt and they give me a lot of anxiety. I don't know if you guys find that.
Yeah, I prefer talking to people and getting to know them one-on-one rather than like in big groups. Like sitting at a long dinner table with friends, I don't like. In a party scene or like in a social environment, I'm fine with because I can like move around and talk to people one-on-one. But yeah, if I'm in a big group and I feel like I'm having to talk to the whole group, I just don't.
Yeah, I think that's the same with me. When you're in a group, I find that there's sort of just so much to keep track of, and you don't know how much everyone else knows, and then I feel definitely much more self-conscious and yeah.
Do you feel like you guys reveal different parts of yourself to different people based on like how comfortable you are or how long they've known you or?
Oh, definitely. Yeah, I think everyone does that to a certain extent. But I think, you have different types of friends, don't you, throughout your life, and there's kind of work friends and people that you're close to, people kind of in glancing social situations that you do keep at arm's length.
Yeah, it's weird thinking about, I don't know, I feel like I've changed a little bit since high school, or like if I were to talk to somebody who I met in high school now, I would feel like they knew a different version of me. Like there was one time I was at my old job and I realized that I met this girl a long time ago, like when we were 15, like freshmen in high school, and she recognized me and she's like, I think I know you. Like we went to school together, like first year. And I'm like, oh my God, you did. We did. Like you knew like a 15-year-old Addie, which is weird to think about because I haven't talked to her in a long time. Kind of thing.
If you put all of the incarnations of Addie in a room together, who would win? Is it 2021 Addie coming out on top, or?
Oh, definitely.
Yeah.
Definitely. Like in a fight?
Yeah, sure. Fight with the Addies.
Yes, I would crush them with my emotional intelligence. But yeah, in high school, I focused more on friendships than I did with boys. Because I was just so insecure. There's no way that I was even going to think about talking to boys or them, like imagining them talking to me, because I assumed that they just wouldn't. So most of my high school, was focused on like friendships and stuff, compartmentalized friendships.
I suppose that ties into Hannah's clip, doesn't it? About her own feelings of going through school and talking to boys and that kind of perceived rejection or disinterest. Should we play that one?
Yeah.
I think in primary school, kind of like end of high school, I always wondered like, oh, do guys actually like me? Or are they just like, I don't know, like just interested about like me being Chinese or whatever. Or like
Into the nest.
yeah, well, it wasn't even that. I genuinely thought it was like the opposite, to be honest. I used to think like, oh, guys won't like me because I'm Chinese, which honestly is such a like awful thing to say. But I would definitely have that. I'd genuinely be like, I think it was just like a white guy thing as well. Like they just wouldn't really. Not that they wouldn't talk to you, but they just, I don't know, I think they maybe like were a bit like intimidated by you just because they were like, oh, maybe
You're different.
Yeah, you're like a completely different person, which is honestly stupid. But I think genuinely in like primary school, I'd always have that like, oh no, I don't think that guy would ever like me because I'm Chinese. It's just honestly just such an awful thing to say.
Yeah, it's so sad. how we think that, or how I definitely felt like that. Did you guys ever feel like that in high school?
Yeah, definitely. And as we were saying, it's just ironic the kind of 180 that's done to now. I think if a guy approaches me, it's does he only like me because I'm Chinese or because he thinks I'm Korean?
Yeah.
It's just, you can't win on that one.
Yeah.
What do you think, Hannah? Because that was part of was it a 5-hour conversation with other Hannah about her experiences? So she grew up here partly in England, that moved to Scotland.
So we had kind of a similar upbringing in the sense that we were both brought up in the countryside or where it was predominantly white. And when we were talking about that, and when she was saying that sort of made me sort of reflect on, oh yeah, I sort of felt that as well, especially, I don't know, in high school, and not really accepting my Chinese features, really. I don't know, did you ever feel that?
I feel like I was aware of having the same feelings that Hannah was talking about, but at the same time, because I had such low self-esteem, I didn't really care if that was like what people said to me, or like I just kind of accepted it as is, and like this is the way it is, and I'm just gonna have to live like this. Like, for example, there was this one guy in high school from first year, I think. He thought it was so funny, like, to call me Ping, like an Asian like nickname or whatever. Like other people would just nickname me Asian, or he would nickname me like Ping and think it was hilarious at like in social settings outside of school, and I would just laugh along and think it was like funny, even though it like hurt me inside. I didn't really like do anything about it. And then later down the road, I ended up asking that same guy to a dance. And I know, like, now that I think about it, I'm like, why did I do that? But that's just an example of how like little I thought of myself at the time. Like, even though this guy gave me like really awful nicknames, I still wanted to pursue him in like asking him to a high school dance, because I just wanted to fit in and be accepted. Like, that weighed more than guys seeing only my race.
But yeah, Hannah, did you find moving from kind of a urban to a rural setting, was that a big turning point for you?
Yeah, I mean, so I was brought up in Dorset and then went to school in Eastbourne, and then that sort of got a little bit more diverse. It was a bit larger, it was a town. And then from then to university in Edinburgh. And I could see that from I'm sort of growing up and realising more about sort of my racial identity, and then there was more diversity in those two places. Looking back, I can definitely see sort of a change in my attitude towards sort of my self-reflection on who I am a bit more.
We're all works in progress there, aren't we? This isn't the end.
Yeah. At what age do you think that you started putting yourself out there and going on dates?
I'm not really sure how to answer that one, to be honest. I think
really?
I knew that people had crushes on me throughout high school, but I think that was a very different time to actually being like, I want to date somebody. I think it was.
Oh, right.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah, and then even I think throughout university and stuff, like I did date people, but I think it was very much. I didn't think it was really interesting. This is a horrible thing to say. I definitely shouldn't say this on live recording, but I wasn't really interested in them. I think it was more just kind of going through the motions, and because I was like, this is what I think I should be doing. My friends were dating as well. But I think it was kind of that thing of like self-protectionism, which I know we touched upon in the last disaster of our first recording, but like if you never let anyone in, you never get hurt, that principle. So I was very much like, if I'm not really invested in you as a concept or a person, then it doesn't really matter. And you're just kind of like there, which just makes me sound like an absolute cow, but she probably was.
No. I actually have a similar experience when I first started dating too. Like, and I didn't really start dating until I was like 19, like 18, 19. And like right when I moved to Vietnam, and I downloaded Tinder. So I started going on dates through that. But there was this one guy that I kind of saw for a few months. And he was from the US as well, teaching English. But I was kind of like seeing him, and he would come over and hang out with my housemates. And yeah, I wasn't really into him. I was just going through the motions, but I thought that's what I was supposed to do, like, in
Yeah.
dating. And I remember asking my housemate, like, what do you think of him? Like, do you like him? Like, because I really wanted to know what she thought of him. And so I kept asking, like, what do you think of him? Like, do you like him? And she was like, well, I think you should be asking yourself if you like him. And I remember thinking, like, oh, yeah, I
have
guess
to like
so.
him as well.
I'm like, do I like him? And then I was like, no, I guess I don't.
Oh, you never really find out how your friends feel about your exes until they're your exes, though. Like, but yeah, I think, like, I was also, like, they were always more interested in me than I was with them, and that was also a more comfortable position to be in, because then when I actually started dating Calvin properly, I'm like, it still is, it's terrifying, because I'm like, I could really get hurt right now, and I don't like that.
How long have you guys been together?
I think 2.5 years now, and I honestly don't know how.
Yeah, that's a long time.
Yeah, with my mum, she's like, yeah, I don't know how either.
Do you remember when you first met him? Like, when did you tell him that, or talk about your adoption and family and stuff?
I think I trauma dumped on the first date. But as we were saying, it's very much, part of, as you get to know people, you kind of, you're like, what, if you've got any siblings, what do your parents do and stuff. And so it kind of naturally bleeds into the conversation. And I don't really hold back on it. I'm just like, no, my name's Joe and I'm adopted. These are my stories.
I think that's how it was with me and Rowan too. Like, and just in general, like, yeah, it comes up in a lot of small talk conversations, whether I'm trying to bring it up or not, it just comes up.
Yeah.
There's one clip that I can play now where I asked Rowan, would it have made a difference if I had told him that I was adopted and about my family the first date or later? Do you think that it would have made a difference if I had told you later, when, like, after a few dates? Or because some people ask, like, well, especially in dating, do I tell them everything on the first date or wait a few dates after we get to know each other, or if it doesn't really matter, like the timing? Because I guess for adoptees, it's a little bit tricky to decide when to tell people, because it does throw some people off. So you never know how people are going to react. So for you, do you think it would have made a difference if I had told you later rather than the first date, or?
No, I don't think so. It didn't make me think any different on you. And I was really into you, so I don't think it would have mattered.
So that was his answer. When I was asking that question, I had this one particular interaction I had in mind, like, or a few, because I've had a few first dates where I tell them and then I get a weird reaction. And the first one was, the guy was like, oh, and you're still so normal. And was like shocked that I was still there in the flesh talking to him, even after growing up with gay moms and being adopted.
It's a miracle.
So that was probably one of the top memories of first dates for me. Another guy I remember going on a first date with, and yeah, we ended up talking about family, and my adoption came up, and he was talking about his family and how, like, he came from a very, like, militant style, and they didn't really have show a lot of affection, I guess, growing up. So he was asking about what my family was like, and I was saying, no, like, my family, we're very affectionate, like, we hug each other, say I love you all the time, like, we're very, very loving, affectionate, open people. And he was like, oh, but that's only because you're adopted, right? And I was like, what?
Excuse you, sir.
Yeah, that will definitely stick in my mind for a while. But yeah, after that, I left and didn't see him again. But you never know. Yeah, you never know what people are gonna say after you tell them, I guess.
Yeah. Have you had any weird reactions, Hannah, to people?
I think always very surprised. But the thing is, when I tell people, it's normally either after a year of knowing them.
A year?
Yeah. I think even my current flatmate. I think just before moving in. So it's either brought up if I have known them for a while, and it's kind of obvious, but I don't tell them until that long. Or sometimes complete strangers where it's like, yeah, I'm adopted, and then that is when it's more of a, I know, shocked and that lucky narrative, and oh, you must be so grateful and everything. And I don't know, a lot of the responses that we got from the Instagram story or highlight.
So it's only strangers or people that you've known for a very long time. No in between.
Yeah, there's no in between.
I think it does throw people a little bit though, because they don't know how to react, and so a lot of it's kind of shock, or like they overcompensate, and then they also throw in that lucky narrative that gets foisted on adoptees.
Yeah.
And then this idea that kind of, that you've been saved from this kind of savage country.
Yeah. You get a lot of, your parents must be so nice.
Yeah, your parents
They're
are great
such
people.
good people.
Mm-hmm.
You're like, I'm a good person too.
I think as a part of it, like it is a great thing to adopt, and it's not an easy process either. So people do have to really commit and jump through a lot of hoops to kind of, in order just to have a family. But it's not really the end all. I mean, adopters and adoptees can both be bad people.
What's some emotional challenges that you feel like you've gone through being in a long-term relationship?
I think being in a long-term relationship has its own trials and tribulations. I mean, just generally, but I think there is the added little caveat of kind of my, I don't want to say severe, but although also not medium, abandonment and rejection issues. Like my skill set when it comes
in
to
between medium and severe.
Yeah.
No in between.
Like 4 out of 5 chilies on like a spice ratio. Hey, 3 on a good day, 4.5 on a bad one. I think my ability to and this is the thing, I feel like I have to gaslight myself sometimes, because I'm like, you were just seeing rejection where it does not exist. I mean, sometimes I'm like, no, that's valid. But yeah, I think I'm definitely quite hypersensitive to rejection and abandonment. So it can be the smallest thing, but I'll be like, the way you shut that fridge was a bit cold. Do you still love me?
Was it the freezer or the fridge?
Yeah.
Or even colder?
I'm not saying this is healthy.
Yeah, I definitely experienced opening up to Rowan being in a long-term relationship. It took longer than, I don't want to say normal, but
What is normal though?
yeah, exactly. We don't need to talk about what's normal, because but yeah, it took me a long time to really feel emotionally vulnerable with him, because I don't want to experience that rejection that is so deep.
Yeah.
But
because it's really, really scary putting yourself out there, and also just the knowledge that this person could kind of crush you in seconds if they really wanted to.
Yeah, I feel like, especially in not just romantic relationships, but in friendships, I always have in the back of my head ready to cut them off if something ever happens, to just be mentally prepared. Do you want to introduce the clip that you kind of talked about this a little bit with your mom in her interview?
Yeah, so the clip we're going to play next, it's part of a larger interview with my mum, and we went into a lot of things we hadn't spoken that much about, because we'd spoken quite a bit about going back to China and finding my birth family, and we do cover a lot of that there, but we hadn't really kind of ever spoken about actual finding them that kind of day. But we also then moved on to relationships and my 4 out of 5 chilies worth of abandonment issues, where she was I mean, she's known me from an infant to an adult, so she's probably the best qualified person to judge on those and to read me to filth, which she does. But anyway.
The moment they showed any negativity towards you, they were just out. Out. Because for you, any kind of rejection is obviously incredibly painful.
Yeah.
And therefore, rather than undergo any more risk of rejection, you would rather cut people out of your life.
Yeah.
So, extreme sensitivity to rejection has been, been evident, watching you grow up and watching you have various friendships. How do you feel it's affected your relationships? Do think my appraisal is.
No, I think it's a very accurate read. Yeah, rejection and abandonment are big ones that I do struggle with. I told you I wake up in the night sometimes. I have to poke Callum and Billy to make sure they're still breathing because I'm just worried that they've gone and died on me. They're not allowed to do. I think especially in the early days with Callum, I definitely see rejection before it didn't come, but I'd read into things and I get very, very upset about that. But then it was just me in my head where I was, and I see him and it'd be absolutely fine. And I think I did catch myself as well doing that thing where I was just like mentally prepared to cut him off because I was like, this is it, it's done. But then he'd turn up and he'd be absolutely fine and I'd have to back away from that cliff. I don't think we're coming off particularly well in this.
I don't think any of us are. But yeah, I didn't really think about connecting abandonment with like fear of death until you kind of gave that example of waking up in the middle of the night and making sure that Callum and Billy are still breathing, because I feel like that's a huge thing for me as well. Definitely fear of death of loved ones.
Death is its own form of abandonment.
Yeah. But I didn't really think that those two were together. I always assumed that abandonment issues meant like people just walking out of your life, but not really death itself. But I thought that was a good connection. Because I felt like that, always worrying about people dying.
Yeah.
Or leaving, like you can't do that.
I remember I used to get nightmares when I was like 8 about my parents dying. And it was...
Really?
Me too.
Did you actually have
Really?
it? Yeah.
Yeah.
What was yours like, Hannah?
No, this will sound so sad. I remember sometimes I'd be really, really sad and just like imagine that my parents, because they're a bit older than average, I'm guessing probably same yours, and there is always that sort of fear of like losing them, and I think there'd be times where I'd wake up and I was just like crying and just like thinking that they'd sort of die or like pass away. I never really thought about it whoa.
Me either.
This revelation.
I think that is a common thing for adoptees, though, to have older parents and to have to kind of recognize or have to deal with mortality of our adoptive parents because of that. Like, we have to kind of have that in our minds earlier on than the average person who won't really have to worry about that until their 40s, really.
Yeah.
Like 30s and 40s. But a lot of adoptees who are adopted by older parents kind of have to face that in their 20s, which I think I've been seeing more common now that, I don't know, we're getting older too.
And it is a big anxiety. I don't know about you guys, but kind of that, I think it's so visceral and it's so kind of just intense and acute. This kind of like that even like the thought of being abandoned again or rejected, it's such kind of like a primal fear that does, to this day, like kind of, she's still there.
Yeah.
Yeah. Do you ever still get anxious now? I mean, because
Absolutely, yeah. I don't think that part will ever go away.
No.
But I don't know. Do you feel like people, now that we have our platform of whatever next, do you see other people on social media or in groups talk about this and like parents being older and dealing with mortality of parents? Because I feel like it's not I don't know. People don't really talk a lot about it, but I think it's something that's very important because we're all going to have to go through it at some point. And
and also for you, Hannah, as well as an only child, that I think that fear is also slightly compounded. But
definitely.
It's not something that I've seen really online. It's more something that I've spoken to fellow adoptees on kind of a one-to-one basis.
Yeah, I do feel like it's important to talk about it, but also to have the support system for like adult adoptees, who are like only children and you know.
I've seen a few posts on, I think, the Facebook groups, and there are some people who were adopted by single parents and then they have either passed away or have like cancer or something, and then they're just the adoptees sort of posting it and sort of sharing that worry. And I feel like those they don't come up often, but I always sort of click on them and just like read the comments and stuff.
And I suppose for a few of those people, I mean, especially if it's a single parent, there might be a kind of issue or feeling of like invalidation when it comes to kind of the wider family, maybe not the immediate family, but that you haven't got that kind of tie anymore because, and that's back to biology, that some, slightly more distant relatives might not view you as family in the same way that they would a blood relation, which is awful.
So Rowan and Callum are both your first serious relationships, would you say?
Yeah.
Yeah.
How did you get over that fear of abandonment and break down your walls before? Yeah, how did you break down your boundaries and walls?
For me, I think it helped when he met my family for the first time relatively early in our relationship, because I met him in the spring and I had my graduation with the college in Hanoi in August. So we had only been dating a few months, but they had all traveled over to Vietnam to attend it. So he met them when they came over, and they met all of my friends. So that was the first time that Rowan met my family in person, and I think that interaction definitely helped me feel more comfortable talking about personal things with him after he could see and talk to like my mom, my sisters, and really try to get a different understanding of where I come from rather than just me telling him. So I think that was a huge part for me.
And Joe?
I'm not entirely sure. I think it probably took me being like, I really care about this person and I want to share that part of my life for them. And that's really kind of just a trial by fire thing. Because I was like, you have to do it, don't you? But I feel like I just spoke at him and I was like, no.
Like
what?
But yeah, Hannah, you can be the one asking questions now instead of.
Yeah, no, you wait till you get your first boyfriend. We're gonna.
I know we have him prepared.
Yeah. Yeah, instead of him being nervous of meeting my parents, it would be meeting you two.
I think one of the interesting things that we did touch upon, though, in the last one, is that a lot of people, you said when you tell them that you've got a boyfriend, that they kind of instantly go to what race is he as their follow-up.
Oh, yes. That's a very common question for some reason. Whenever it comes up in conversation that I have a boyfriend, most of the time, especially if it's another guy who's asking me, will ask what his race is. They'll ask, "Oh, is he Asian? Is he white?" until I fill in the blank, and I'm like, "Why does it matter? Why?" And then when I answer, "Is he? He's white," they'll always be like, "Oh, do you only date white guys?" Or if they keep talking before I answer and assume that he's Asian, they'll be like, "Oh, do you only date Asians?" But it's very weird.
Yeah, it's that thing where people kind of, they feel the need to box you, and it's, I think also a part of that question is a gauge to work out what sort of, how whitewashed are you, or are you kind of one of those girls, and then they can like move on in their own circle of assumptions, and they're like, great, that box is ticked, let's move on to something else.
Yeah, like a very, very quick assessment of me.
Yeah.
Like I'm in a test. Like which answer is the correct answer? I don't know.
Right?
Yeah. I'll be like, just kidding, I actually don't have a boyfriend.
She's like, he's Hispanic. One of the two options.
He's leaf boy. He defies categorization.
He's a cat, actually. But yeah, people are always curious about Rowan's race. And then they'll want to see a picture of him.
Just in case you got it wrong.
Just in case, yeah.
In case you forgot what he looked like.
They want to double check my work. Do you get that a lot?
Yeah, because they'll be like, "Oh, my boyfriend's in Scotland." They're like, "But is he Scottish?" And you're like, "Yes, okay."
Like asking, is he white?
Yeah, because that's the subtext, isn't it?
Are you just like, yes?
Yes, yes. Yes, all above.
But yeah, there is a stigma with white guys dating Asian women, I feel like.
Yeah,
That's another
it's a whole other kind of
whole
worms
other conversation.
that I don't
guess.
think we have time for in this one, but
We will talk about this in another dating-related episode. If you're interested in any other questions or comments or stories that you want to hear from us relating to relationships.
yeah, because that one definitely deserves its own podcast. There's just so much to unpick there.
Yeah, there's a lot
So
of different
much.
topics within this topic that I think that, we have
Overloaded.
could spend a lot of time on.
Yeah, and I think it's a shame that we've ended up doing some of them an injustice just by kind of merit of a conversation, a dialogue flow that. But yeah, hopefully we'll come back. We'll circle back. And if we did
Yeah.
miss anything major, please just message us. Call us out.
Yeah.
And our email is whatevernext2020@gmail.com.
Thank you. But yeah, we definitely want to hear your thoughts, what you think, which parts you thought were most interesting, relatable,
Unrelatable.
or unrelatable. Yeah,
Boring.
all of the things. Boring. The whole thing.
Whatever Next has chosen to help support Rape Crisis Scotland because of all the work that they do to help end sexual violence. They work with 17 independent local rape crisis centres spread across Scotland, as well as running a national helpline year-round to support anyone affected by sexual violence. They also work with schools to help teach consent and safe sex and campaign to change legislation and attitudes that allow sexual violence and those who practice it to prevail. It should go without saying that ending sexual violence is a matter that each of us take very seriously. That's why we've decided to donate the profit raised from some of the stickers that we're selling to Rape Crisis Scotland. If you want to head over to our website, they're on sale, and also through our Instagram if you just want to DM us. Thank you.
Thanks for listening to Whatever Next. You can find more of our episodes on Acast, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts. With thanks to Andy Lum for editing and mixing this episode, Whatever Next is produced by Solus Sounds.